And we are live. All right. So this will be a mini series where I have compiled a list of 100 questions. Considering the value of time, it makes sense to divide up these questions and cover each section. We will attempt to limit the time to less than 2 hours, hopefully about 90 minutes. Any questions left over will be picked up in the next session. So we hope to see you in future live streams. The sections are Fun Start, Birth of a Bricklink Store, Daily Logistics, Honest Advice, and Looking Forward. The goal of this series is to compile an ebook that will become the starting point for any Bricklink seller to read before they start a new Lego aftermarket business. BrickTsar will not be the only Lego reseller to be showcased in a forthcoming ebook. However, he will be among the distinguished few to share his experiences in building a Bricklink store. As an entrepreneur, I know lunch is never free nor easy. If you're expecting steady pay, it's best to find someone else to work for. If you enjoy taking risk and betting everything for a better future that may never come, then I invite you to dive into the deep end head first. Just to start off the conversation, I'll mention a quick bit about myself. My real name is Richie Bartlett, and I go by the online nickname of Lord Zyra. This is for Lord Zyra TV, and I live in Japan. I'm a 38-year-old entrepreneur who has failed more times than I care to admit. But it only takes one successful idea to elevate you to the next level. I emerged from my dark age towards the latter half of 2015. After almost 20 years of no Lego, I found myself in my favorite electronics toy store on the Lego aisle. I was immediately brought back to my earlier childhood days where I had a fair collection of Lego sets, about 50 I think. At the time I realized I missed it and could now afford to catch up on lost time. I found all kinds of resources aimed at AFOLs. I even learned new terms that surrounded the Lego community. I found Bricklink and YouTube channels on what, how, and why about bricklinking. I found Brickset and Rebrickable. Eventually, I found BrickTsar. From that point, I thought it was a really good idea to research more about people who have established Lego stores. I would encourage anyone to give BrickTsar's store a chance. Check him out. You can find his online presence at BrickTsar.com. That's BrickTsar.com. I'll have more details in the description. Now, Joseph, who is also known as BrickTsar, I want to shift the conversation on how you began with Lego and the journey that led you to build your online store. My focus of this interview is to dive into those deeper questions for logistics and points every budding Bricklink seller should know before they start their own store. So to start off, I really wish there was some concise online guidebook to show the best way to build a Bricklink store. Having found none, I'm happy to take the mantle and run with the baton. Would you mind if I used your name, nickname, and shamelessly plugged your store in the ebook?
No problem.
Now, I know you're commonly referred by your nickname online, which is BrickTsar. May we know your real name?
My real name is Joseph. My last name is Olson.
Okay. And so where did the nickname BrickTsar come from?
That is it actually has roots going way back. In fact, the video I did just yesterday, last night actually, I gave Mardi Gras Man some of my homework from college from the late 80s, and I had wrote Czar on the on the homework. So it was something from a history teacher I had in high school. Where he was talking about why you spell Tsar Tsar instead of Czar. and I just kind of latched onto that and then started using it as a nickname uh, growing up after high school, I should say. So
It's
when I
interesting
started,
you mentioned about history. When I look at the spelling of TSAR for czar, I commonly see that in history reference to Russians. Is there any relationship there?
yes, I was this history teacher I had in high school. Um, he helped me get a love for a subject that I had no interest in, any type of history. I was just, I didn't want to do it, but the books that he assigned us to read and the discussion and just bringing that history to life really got me fascinated with history. And one of those things was Russian history. And we had to read this book called The Russians. We had to read about Peter the Great. We had to read about Nicholas and Alexander. And so I would have never read these books on my own. And so it just got me into learning more about those things, and that's where it started.
Now, I know from watching your channel and through my research that you didn't exactly start with Lego as a business hobby. Rather, if correct me if I'm wrong, but you started out selling comic books. Is that correct?
Yes, my very first eBay listings were comic books. I had a massive comic book collection, and I've been looking for ways to sell it, and I tried going to shows, and it's just too much work. And then when eBay came along, actually I had to get a computer first. As I remember, my very first listings, I didn't even have pictures. It was just descriptions. I managed to sell stuff, and then I had to buy a scanner that's to do the photos, and it was tedious work. But I sold quite a bit, and between the years 2000 to like 2004, I was just selling stuff all the time on eBay. It was mostly
Okay. So tell me about how you started with Lego. Is this something you had as a child and your family bought you Lego, or was this something that came up later in life when you had kids?
yeah, that's a good question. It is a lifelong love. Probably from the time I was about 6 or 7 years old, when I got the first Lego sets. That's probably when it began, and I never grew out of it. I had a bunch of siblings. I was come from a family of seven. We lived in a two-bedroom house, so you couldn't have a lot of anything that you liked. It just I couldn't afford it. Number one, didn't have space for it. But so I treasured the few Lego sets that I had, and over the years, I might get one or two a year. And when I went to college, a lot of people they kind of get away from Lego when they go to college. But when I went to Lego, I actually spent my money that was supposed to be for books and stuff. I used that to help me get, about like one or two orders from Lego Shop at Home.
So did you ever go through a dark age?
No, I've never had a dark age.
Gotcha.
Well, my dark age is when I decided to sell some of my treasured sets. But no, I've never been out of the hobby since the beginning.
Okay. So you pretty much your whole life, at least from 7 until now, you've been with Lego as well as comic books.
Yeah, yes. Comic books, I stopped in 1996. March 1996 is kind of when I cut comic books off right then because I was mad about Spider-Man.
Ah,
I was mad about the whole. I liked the Doomsday storyline and Superman, and they brought Superman back, and they started doing this weird stuff with Spider-Man, and I said I had enough. I had enough of it, and my collection had gotten unmanageable at that point, and I just said the only way I'm going to stop is stop cold, and that's what I did in '96, and that actually opened up because around that time, a few years actually before that, um, I was started discovering Lego clearance. I started focusing more of the money that I'd been putting into comic books, more just into Lego instead of comic books.
So when you were a kid, do you remember what your very first favorite Lego set was?
Um, I always try to remember what my first sets. I know a couple of the sets that I had. There was the one set that was the Timber Truck, set 435. It's just a little 17-piece set. I know I had that set, and I know I had set 145, which was the bigger set. It was one of those kind of universal type sets. I'm thinking I got the Timber Truck first. I'm pretty sure my parents would have started off with the smaller sets to begin with. But my favorite one, there was a windmill. I think it's set 550. It's just a little Dutch style windmill that turns, has yellow fans on it. And I had built that set, taken apart, built it, taken apart, built it so many times. I built it from memory. Of course, the sets were simple back then, but I think that was my favorite set. That's the one I have the most memories of as a kid.
So what is it about Lego that you find so fun and inspiring? What's the biggest appeal that draws you to Lego?
I think there's just no limitations with it, especially when they started introducing the electronics into it, with the expert builder system, which is now Technic. I was able to combine things I love because as a kid, I also liked electronics, and I did a social studies project, and I incorporated electronics and Lego and dominoes in my social studies project. So don't ask me how that applied to social studies in 7th grade, but that's what I did. It was because the theme was trigger mechanism, and I think that was supposed to be things that trigger events in social, like in government or things like that. But I did it with dominoes and Lego and electronics. And that was in 1980, I think.
Okay, so you mentioned you liked the windmill. I think you said it was a set 550. Considering what you liked then, would you also consider that your favorite set now?
I would. I'll put it up there. Yes. I'm still partial to that time period, those Lego sets. I did kind of go back and forth between it and another set that I did not have called the Brickyard, which is it's like a gravel quarry with a little conveyor belt. I think it's 580 was that set. I can't remember, but it's that one was the one I really liked because it had little tipper trucks in it. It had more playability with it than the windmill set, but it didn't have any people with it. The windmill set had the little armless, faceless minifigures with it, so I kind of like that. So I think I put that one above the Brickyard.
Okay, so I know you said you were selling off your comic books around 2004. Is that about the time that you started a Bricklink store, or did that come later?
I joined Bricklink. I have to go back and look at the date. I think I joined in 2001 when I joined Bricklink as a buyer, strictly as a buyer. And then it was about 2004 when I opened my store because I was selling excess Lego on eBay. But when I discovered Bricklink, I realized I could actually get more for certain things, especially sets. Minifigures you could sell for more on eBay, but sets you could sell for more on Bricklink. So I was selling some sets. Some that I regret now. I have a file, and I can't find it right now because it's packed away. I wanted to get it out for this, but it's got. I actually did everything by hand when I was selling. As far as I'd print out the invoices, but when I made a log of what I sold, I actually wrote it out by hand, and I had a list of all the things that I'd sold on eBay. And then finally with Bricklink, I just started keeping my invoices. I wanted to know what I was selling, and I sold all my trains, I sold all my castle, all of my pirates, and and then later I'm trying to get back all those train sets I sold. But that was my first experience just selling sets. So you list stuff, and I might go several months without selling anything, and then all of a sudden somebody will come and buy like 10 sets. That's how it usually went back in those days. I wasn't actively looking to sell things quickly. I just want to sell them at a certain price point.
Now, to be clear, you didn't start selling anything on Bricklink or on eBay strictly as a business. You approached it from the point of view as a hobbyist. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Whether it was the comic books or the Lego, it was just like getting rid of stuff, the way of dwindling down what I had so I could go and purchase other things. I wasn't looking then, nor am I really now, looking at it to make it like a full-time career where that's what I do for my livelihood, my business, my income. It was a hobby, pretty much.
Okay. Now, in my previous conversations with Clutch, he mentioned that it's his belief that most sellers online, I'm live. I'm live.
I'll probably have some come by too.
Sorry, my wife came in and she didn't know that I'm live. Okay, so coming back to my train of thought, Klutz was saying how he believes most sellers are hobby sellers. That's the term he used. And there are very few professional, dedicated people who are just strictly business when it comes to Lego. Now, of course, they have an interest in Lego, but they do it mostly to sell, not as a hobby. So my question becomes, do you remember your first sale and the emotions that came with that sale? Were you excited? Were you happy? Can you describe that?
I remember like when I first started selling on eBay, eBay was like a rush. I remember selling, because I had all of the pirate sets that were made up until 2000. I had all of them. And most of them were still sealed. And I remember putting those on eBay. It's like back in those days, you put something on, you started getting bids right away. It wasn't like it is today when you list something and then you have to wait till 5 seconds before the auction ends before anybody bids on it. So that was really exciting because you didn't know what it was going to go for. And sometimes it would shock you. You'd be like, oh, I can't believe that I paid $2 for that set and I just sold it for 25, you know. So there was a lot of that back then. In fact, the prices that a lot of the stuff I sold then, I couldn't get the same price today. It'd be less. But on Bricklink, I honestly can't remember my first sale, but I do remember some that kind of surprised me. I had those Emerald Knights in my store. I had 3 of the Emerald Knight train. And they were still in the stores, I thought. But as soon as that got discontinued from Lego, boom, somebody bought all 3 of them in my store. It was like $600 and something, and had to ship it overseas. And usually all my big orders, they've been overseas. And back then, it wasn't so bad. Big box probably shipped it for $40 or $50, whereas it probably over $100 to ship the same thing today. But I had some people like to buy the sealed sets. At that time. So that's usually what I was selling in my early days on Bricklink was field sets. I had a lot of Star Wars sets that I sold. Trying to think of some of the other ones. By then, by the time I started Bricklink, all my pirate stuff was gone. Most of my castle stuff was gone. It was mostly trains and whatever had been out in the last few years that just got discontinued.
So, as a hobby seller, what would you say is the best part of being a Bricklink seller?
Oh, the best part is if you're building something and you need to get the part, you know where to get it. And that's one of the things I just did before I had to close my store because we didn't have time to fulfill the orders. That's another great thing is that I don't have to worry about keeping my store open. It may hurt me with repeat customers, but if I need to close my store, I can close it. But yeah, I was taking some parts out of my store, and so I'll go and pull up in my inventory from my wanted list that set, and then I'll just stock room them. I'll put them all in the stock room, so then I can go and get those out and take them out of my inventory. So yeah, sometimes you're building something or you're putting together an old set and you need a piece. You go in the store and you can find it. And sometimes some of the stuff, it's like, oh, I didn't know I had that until somebody orders it. It's pretty funny because somebody asked me the other day what is the oldest lot in my store, and I had parts that were from 2008. They've been in my store since 2000. It's almost 9 years now. But it's still neat just being able to, if you need the parts, just go to your own store.
So are you currently a part of a lug?
My dilemma is I'm not somebody who has a lot of free time, which may surprise people because I do so many videos, I do the store, and because I do those things, I don't have a lot of the time to go to the lug meetings. And more importantly, I don't have time to go to the shows that the lugs do so they can get the support from Lego. And because I feel guilty, it's like even sometimes when they have a lug meeting, I won't go because I know I won't be able to go to the show. But they got a show they're doing January 28th at the Railroad Museum. It's not too far from where I live, and I won't be able to go. So I feel bad about that. And then they're having a Brick Fest in Atlanta at the end of February, and I probably won't be able to go to that. So I'm kind of an inactive member, I guess you would say. And
Okay, so when you opened your Bricklink store, did you also use or choose the name BrickTsar at that time, or was that something you came up with later?
that was something I came up with later. In fact, excuse me, with eBay, my eBay username is Jabos, and my Bricklink store was Jabo, which is my nickname. That's what everybody called me growing up. They called me Jabo, and that's my family nickname, and then all people that knew my family, that's what they called me. So that was my store name. And that is actually the URL. You can see that because with Bricklink, that stays with you. Even if you change your store name, that URL stays the same.
So when did you decide on a Bricklink store name for BrickTsar? What's in the name? And I ask this because it relates to marketing and how you grab your customers' attention to come into your store.
Okay. Excuse me. I am a terrible marketer. I am a terrible self-promoter. And I had been doing research, and a lot of things were telling me that you need to have a brand. You need to be your brand, or you need to have consistent branding across different platforms. And since my BrickTsar YouTube channel, it had like really rapid growth in 2013 and 2014. I said, well, I need to stick with this. This is growing. This is what people know. I'm getting questions every single day. What's the name of your Bricklink store? Even though you got links everywhere, even though you say it, I said, okay, I need to make the Bricklink store BrickTsar. Well, then I made the mistake of making it BrickTsar with 2 words instead of just 1 word. So then I still couldn't find it. So I didn't change it. It's still BrickTsar with 2 words. But the link is in the description. That's the way I say it. But then I tried to make a website. I don't know anything about doing a website. I wanted to have email. It was BrickTsar. Just make everything consistent. I tried to do it with Facebook. I messed up with Facebook because I didn't understand the difference of a page and a user. And I didn't realize you could set up these pages. So when I set up the account as BrickTsar, it was brick.tsar, which was really confusing. So by the time I got it set up the right way, it was the BrickTsar. That's the only one I didn't get right, but all the other ones, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, any other social media platform that may come up, Tumblr, all just make it all one word, trying to make it less confusing for people.
So you bring up a good point regarding branding and the like, and the time it takes to manage all your the social platforms that you present yourself on. Did you do any kind of research to figure out what type of demographics come from each of those platforms?
No, like I said, I'm not. Um, I I just use things, and if I like using it, I tend to use it more. I did find, and I learn a lot from my kids because they're good with the social media. They know all the features. I'll get my son to help me and my daughter to help me with things, and I gravitate to what is easy for me, which ended up being YouTube and then Instagram. Instagram is super easy to me, unless they keep changing it, trying to make it more like Facebook since Facebook bought it. But yeah, I tend to gravitate what's easy. Probably should do a better job of learning how to use those different platforms. I have been trying, for instance, Twitter. I totally don't understand Twitter. I never got the appeal of it. So, and I realized I had a Twitter account, but I never logged into it, never looked at it. It was just posting every time I liked something on YouTube or if I posted a video. And then I realized one day, I'm just a Twitter spammer. That's all I am.
I actually have to admit I'm kind of similar. I actually understand the point behind Twitter. Twitter is basically a broadcasting medium where it broadcasts to everybody regardless, whereas I see Facebook as similar to your daily journal, something that you might share with family or you might not, but it's basically something that's for yourself.
Well, if you do something on Twitter, yeah, everybody's going to get it. The problem I have like with Facebook trying to learn how to use it is that people have to actually go out of their way to find it because Facebook's going to hide it. If I've learned that if I post a link to a video to YouTube, that's not going to get seen by me. But if I post a picture or upload a native video to Facebook and then copy or put in the comment section the link to my video, all of a sudden it gets like 10 times as many eyeballs as the link on YouTube because they're wanting to make money. I understand why they do it, but it is kind of frustrating trying to figure out because each platform is different, and it just. In fact, I had a guy send a private message to me on Facebook today, and he had his room. It kind of looked like ours. That had stuff in the back, and he was talking about all the old sets he had. And he'd collected vintage stuff, and on his Facebook link that he sent to me, he had a comment from the Lego group on it. I was like, "Well, that's pretty neat." Get them to comment on it.
Well, my observation of Facebook, especially when I do any kind of advertising on Facebook, is for Facebook, you need to target your message more closely to the audience that might actually read that message. So if I'm a part of the AFOLs group on Facebook, then I need to make sure my message is very highly targeted and customized strictly for that group. Otherwise, they may block it or delete it or ignore it. Whereas in Twitter, you can make it as general as possible. And because it's a wide broadcast, it's almost like TV. I see Twitter as like TV. It's a broadcast to anybody. You don't know who's watching. But Facebook, you kind of do know who's watching. And so you need to kind of target it more closely to that. That's been my observation.
Maybe I'll learn it one day.
Okay. So as you may have noticed, we've transitioned from, how you start out with Lego, and we've gone into the birth of the Bricklink store. And I want to ask some more questions about how do you manage your inventory? Do you use any kind of software or just leave it all on Bricklink? How do you manage your Lego inventory?
Am I still here? Okay.
Did I lose you there for a second?
It glitched for just a second there to me.
Okay. So I'll re-ask. how do you manage your Lego inventory? Do you use the website or any other third-party software?
That's where YouTube helped. Was from 2004 to 2013. Everything that I did on Bricklink was self-taught, trial and error. I did not use any software. I used strictly the Bricklink website. It had this thing about, upload an XML file or something, and I'm like, well, it takes forever to type that. I don't know how to do that. So I would just, when I entered parts, I literally did it one lot at a time. So if I had a piece and it was just one piece, I'd search that piece up, I'd go through and enter. In fact, if you look at some of my original YouTube videos, that's what I was showing how to do, how to add lots one piece at a time, basically. So it wasn't a very efficient thing. And that's where Clutch came in, because when he got on YouTube and he was like, man, you're doing this all wrong. Oh. And he told me about BrickTsar, I think it was called BrickStock. Might be BrickTsar now, but that's the one that a lot of people use because it's free software.
Well,
that was a big one.
It's not exactly free. I think they call it free. What do they call it? Freeware. It's not exactly freeware. It's free to use, but they encourage you to pay $20 to the developer to keep developing on it. Now, as I understand from Clutch, it was originally called BrickTsar and then became BrickStock after it changed hands.
I can never remember which way it goes. That's the one I got the icon right here on my computer. I should look at it sometime. But that's not for managing my inventory. It's like, that's just to upload. When I upload something, I use the BrickTsar. Some people might go through and download their entire store inventory and then edit it that way. If I need to make changes, I usually just do that straight from the Bricklink website. I'm not dealing in the volume that some of these other guys are, the regular sellers.
Okay. So I know previously you mentioned you were writing things down on paper when you first started your Bricklink sales. You were selling a set, and you said earlier you had a file that you can't pull out right now. But were you doing everything by hand at the beginning, or did you have something you stored on the computer?
I did not save anything on the computer. I have no data files from those years. It was either you print out the invoice or you write down in a log, what you sold and how much you sold it for. That's pretty much the way I did it right then. But again, when you're selling a couple of things a month, it's not that big a deal. eBay was a little more, because that was every single day. Every single day I was writing something down. I even wrote down with eBay. I even wrote down the number of the eBay item number. I look back and I'm like, man, how did I have that much time? I mean, I had infants in the house. I don't know how I did it back then. But I was selling a lot more frequently back then too, even though shipping was take stuff to the post office and then buy your shipping at the post office. Even with the early days of Bricklink, that's what it was. You'd figure out how much it would cost, and you'd hope you'd be right, and then you take it up to the post office and buy the postage there. So it was a whole different world before, learning how to use a label and printing from PayPal and things like that. PayPal saved us. I mean, that's why I don't mind paying the fees to PayPal, because they've saved me a lot of time with the shipping.
So now that you've had 12 plus years of selling Lego online, be it through eBay or Bricklink, what do you wish, what kind of software or additions to any existing software do you wish was available that would make your business process easier?
I think what they got is pretty good. I think the one thing that most people wish would be that it would be totally seamless for the buyer, because most people experience, because you're dealing with people that are collectors, people that are buying Lego regularly on Bricklink, so they know what to do. But it's still, even with all the Bricklink 2.0 and everything, it's still a little confusing for new people when they get on Bricklink. What do I do? And they get frustrated. A lot of people, they try to buy something the first time. They're confused. They're used to buying things on Amazon where they can go fill up their cart, check out, pay, boom, they're done. That's what I think all Bricklink sellers want, is for it to be totally seamless where they can go in there, place their order, pay for it, and then get the order. Not have all these other little steps that are confusing for new people. So I think Bricklink's working towards that. In fact, they may even have something. I just don't know about it. I don't check the forums. But
Now I know
I think
on
that's
I know that BrickOwl sort of has a little bit more seamless checkout process. Have you used BrickOwl at all?
I've looked at it. I'm not interested in trying it out. I've looked at it a few times, and I'm just one of those people. I sometimes, to my own detriment, I fight change. But once I learn something and I know how to do it that way, please don't change it. Please don't move where my icons are on the screen. Please don't change how you do this. It's like once I get good and efficient at doing something a certain way, I don't like it to change. So it makes it hard for me to transition to another platform. If they had something better to offer, I might, but Bricklink is where the good buyers to me are. I may be wrong, and I know that I think you can merge your accounts together, but that always confused me. Just like the days when I would see somebody that had an eBay store and they had a Bricklink store, and they had the exact same item in each. I'm like, dude, what are you going to do if somebody buys it on eBay and Bricklink at the same time? Then you got to tell somebody, oh, oops, that's not there anymore. I don't know if that happens with BrickOwl. Even if it's instantaneous, and what if two people bought the same parts at the same time? I mean, you might have a conflict. I don't know.
Well, I actually asked Clutch about this, and Clutch basically said to the effect that he's avoiding BrickOwl, because not necessarily because of the difficulty in managing inventory. He actually has a good response for that, but mostly because of the time and effort it takes to manage multiple marketplaces. The platforms involved, you have to run additional software to synchronize them all together, and that's an additional load on his work that he has to put in, his time. And for the time being, it's not valuable enough for him to do that. Now, I've also noticed in other research that the market for BrickOwl has a different type of buyer than you would find on Bricklink.
What type of buyer is it?
Well, that one I have yet to fully establish myself, but it seems like you get a lot of people, especially since the platform is relatively new compared to Bricklink. The buyers on there tend to think of the marketplace similar like they would Amazon. They're not exactly what. Go ahead.
Well, they'll pay too much for stuff. That's what I see on Amazon. Is like stuff is way overpriced, yet people buy it.
Right. Well, the thing that BrickOwl solved was the developers behind BrickOwl got tired of waiting for Bricklink to fix their platform, update it to today's standards, and make it easier for the buyer. And so that's what Bricklink 2.0 was trying to address, but of course they went through some transitional pains in that process.
I have a theory, or not a theory, but a thought on this with Bricklink. It's the same as you look at your Lego builders, what type of people they generally are. You know that they're usually these engineering type, intellectual types, creative types. A lot of times they're either architects or engineers or something like that, or musicians. I mean, people that just have creativity, and they're intelligent. So what I think by Bricklink's platform being broken, it protects it from something, and that is 12-year-olds who want to set up their account. There are some that set their account up. I just saw one the other day. He had a YouTube video where he was ranting against Bricklink. And 3 seconds into the video, I said, well, the problem is you're 12 and you shouldn't even been on the site to begin with. And I've had those dealings where you don't know when somebody's ordering from your store unless they have bad grammar or start asking stupid things that they're actually a child, which is against the terms and all that. And then you got to go through all that process. And so by it being hard, sometimes to place an order and figure out, oh, I got to have a PayPal account and all this, I think it keeps a lot of those kids off of there. Whereas if it was really simple, you might have kids left and right buying stuff, and then all of a sudden you end up having other issues later. It takes you a while to figure out as a kid.
Now, I know in Clutch's video, Free Lego episode 6, he mentioned how he wished Bricklink and other software could provide better sales analytics for his store. Now, as a hobby seller, would you find having metrics in your store valuable to you?
No, because in the end, I'm not looking to reach a certain margin, like, you know, what I paid for stuff versus what I sold. And yeah, I do want to sell it for more than what I paid for it generally, but it's not critical. It's not worth the investment in the time. I basically need to know what I spent and what I sold so I can report stuff to the IRS. I mean, that's all I need. I don't need to analyze things for future growth, because it is. I mean, I see how Clutch has changed how he has sold just in the last couple of years, and it's because he has analyzed it and he's doing what is most efficient to provide the best product that will sell, because people actually want the product that he has. And you know, knowing what to buy and how things sell over time, and knowing what types of parts to sell, and getting those kind of analytics, it would help you run your store more efficiently. You provide better service for your customers, and you make more profit. You can run it better. You can grow your business, start hiring more employees and things like that. But I never want to have any employees other than family members that live in my house helping me out. I don't want to get to that. If my store gets that big, I'm in trouble. I don't want to get that point.
Okay, so perhaps so you started your Lego business in 2004. Would you say there's been any? Say again.
I started selling Lego in 2000 on eBay. 2004 was with Bricklink.
Right. Okay. So from 2000. So would you say having a Lego business has any effect on your personal life?
It can, and one thing that's helped is learning how to do things where I didn't have to do all the work as far as the packing of the orders. My wife can do that now. I used to work at night, so when the orders would come in, and I get home from work in the morning, or I could wake up later in the afternoon, I could get them packed and shipped without anybody else having to touch it. But my wife wanted to get involved because she wanted to help me sell stuff a little faster, because I'd have to close my store all the time if she didn't help me. So getting things where they're simple enough where anybody could pick the orders, that has helped a lot, because she just goes through there and she knocks them out, and she's a lot more accurate than I ever was. She catches mistakes, and having that's helped a lot, make it where the process runs more efficiently, where I can downsize quicker. And if I need to sell things, like if we want to get money for a trip or something, you know, we got. That's why she's really wanting to help. It's like, we need money for vacation, we can get it.
Okay, so I know as an entrepreneur that whenever you have to go out and you have to pitch to an investor, or you've got a major customer who wants something done, it doesn't matter that it's Friday night and you plan to go to the movie with your wife or your girlfriend. You got to take that call, or you got to go run over and say, how can I help you? So I was wondering if you had any kind of experiences similar to that.
With Bricklink, I've had people place an order and then say, "Can I ship it overnight?" Right there, for instance, they'll order something on a Wednesday and they're going to be at a convention on a Thursday or a Friday or something. Or I've even had them where they wanted it on Saturday for a show. And they, place the order on Friday. Can you get it here by Saturday? I'm like, well, I'd like you to, if you had asked me that before you placed the order. But I've done it. Every single time anybody has asked me to do that, I've done the order. Because I've always viewed my store like I want to treat people the best way that I possibly can. So it's like we're quick. I mean, Bricks for Chris, who was one of my biggest buyers, most frequent buyers, he always came back because he's like, man, you got this stuff quick. I mean, he lives so close to me. He's in the next state over. He'd get stuff the next day. He'd place an order, and the next day he would get it, and it was just regular first class mail. I was like, how do you do that? It's like I pick them and ship them as soon as I get them. I don't waste any time. So I always wanted to have an aura of good customer service, and I've sometimes gone out of my way for people. Sometimes people are unreasonable in their demands and their expectations, but I try to do the best to accommodate everybody.
But when you first started, yeah, that's actually a great answer. So when you first started selling Lego, you said it was a great rush. I imagine there was some periods where it started to kind of die down. There was kind of slopes in your sales. At those points, did you ever have any doubts that selling Lego was something you should continue doing?
I always had doubts. I don't want it to become like a burden on me or my family. I don't want it to be ever like a job. I don't want it to be like work. I want it to be fun, and I don't want it to ever become like a financial burden, like going out to buy more to sell and things like that. So, because and trying to I've done a lot in between YouTube and Bricklink and doing other things on YouTube and countless things that people do not even have any clue what I do in my personal life. I work a job too that I'm on call. And you talk about being on call in the middle of the night. I work on 911 systems for phone companies, so it's like 911 system goes down, you got to be there. You got to fix it. You got it's life or death, literally life or death situation sometimes. So I know what it means to make a drive 3 hours in the rain to get somewhere because they're having problems answering calls for 911. So I don't want that stress. I don't want to bring that level of stress into my hobby. And trying to juggle all these things, I have done that. I've had moments where I just need to step back from it. I don't need to sacrifice or make it cause stress in my family because I'm spending so much time doing these things. And that's why, we're trying to even find the time to do this live stream with you. It's like I got so much on my plate. I can't guarantee that I'll even be available for a small window of time because I don't know what's going to come up. Something could come up. I have to do it on a week that I'm not on call. Because like if we were doing this and the phone rang, I do, things like that. So I'm hoping that my end game is I want this hobby, not just selling on Bricklink, but the YouTube videos and whatever I build around that, which will include partly the selling. When I'm pointing over there, that's where all my inventory is. So I keep pointing that direction. That behind me is my personal stuff. But I want to be able to live off of that, but not have the stress level that goes with it. I want to be able to do what I want to do when I want to do it. And that's what I'm working towards. I'm getting.
Well, I think a lot of us are trying to work to that end. I recall a video where you said that you felt like YouTube was bringing in enough where you might be able to rely on YouTube as your primary source of income. Do you ever see selling Lego reaching that kind of level?
Um, it easily could. I mean, if I invested the time into it to get the inventory built up, because it's weird. It's not weird, but it's logical that the more inventory you have, the more sales you get. I mean, it's just. I mean, when I started getting over 100,000 parts, up to 200,000 parts, it's like I was getting so many orders that I couldn't keep up. I remember when Bricks for Chris, he went full on, dedicated. He got to the point where he was just working around the clock, taking orders, which is no fun. You don't want it to get to that point where you're just that's all you're doing all day long is parting out sets and taking orders, and no matter how much money you're making, it's not worth it. But to make what I always compare things is what I make at my real job. You know, if I can make whatever I make per day at my real job doing that or YouTube or something else, then I say, well, then I could live off of it because I already am. It's just I have to figure out the other things, work, having a job that here in the U.S. that's where a lot of times we rely on our health insurance. There's a lot of hidden values to working for a good company like I do. People that just said that, but you got health insurance, I got employee discounts on things, and so I have to take those hidden costs will go away. You know, if I decided to retire from that job and then dedicate to these other things. So just trying to do the math to figure out what all of that would involve. But I could easily set up my store where I could make, as far as sales, what my job is. But then you got all your overhead and things. So between that and YouTube, it would be no problem.
Now, anyone who's seen videos for Clutch know that he's taken on employees and the like. And you mentioned yourself that your wife wanted to involve herself in the family business. Do you have any friends or perhaps your kids as well participate in parting out sets and selling everything for Bricklink?
If they get involved, I need to compensate them because I don't want to take advantage of them. I mean, my son's still in school. My daughter's got other things that spend time on. It's like she's like, they'll come to me and say, if I do something, will you give me money for this? So it's always like I'm paying them for whatever they do. So I don't think they're interested in doing that as a career. My daughter's got things she wants to do. My son's got the things that he wants to do. So it's like I'm not going to force them to like the same things that I like. So I don't see it ever being that. I don't see, he'll help me if I need help, if something comes up. He loves helping me with the YouTube, my son, I'm talking about. But yeah, I'm not going to be one of those parents that's forcing their kid to do something that the kid doesn't really want to do. I kind of see that a lot in YouTube.
Well, no one's encouraging slave labor by any means, although I think Big B jokes about it from time to time.
I would say this, that my son gets some benefits to all this because he loves building. So he gets to do all that. So he's gone crazy these last few weeks. I guess he's caught up on school or something. He has built tons of stuff. And it's like he couldn't do all, we couldn't afford those sets if I wasn't doing these other things. That's why, I see, I did a video talking about, I feel guilty doing the hauls sometimes. Because that's what people see. They see all the stuff that's coming in, but they don't see all the work that goes on behind the scenes. And then, I get all this and then I got to get rid of stuff. Stuff comes in, stuff's got to go out too. And I can see I see how some other people do it, which is actually, if you're going to do it as a business model for YouTube and not Bricklink, so if you don't want to because that's a lot of work. I mean, there's time that goes into selling. But I tell you what's a lot easier is you buy something and you do a YouTube video, your YouTube video makes money, and then you take that same product and you donate it. Like you got a double tax write-off. You can write it off the expense of buying it, You can write off the expense of donating if you go to the right charities. So that's probably a better business model for somebody than to keep it and then try to sell it. Because then you got to report that income, and it's just like more work. But if you donate it, it's a lot easier. Maybe one
Okay.
day that's where I'm just donating stuff instead of trying to sell it.
Well, you bring up an excellent point here that I think I'll like to investigate further down the line, but we'll definitely have to come back to that at another point. So continuing on in the Birth of a Bricklink section, what would you say were your worst pains in managing a Bricklink store?
Well, at the beginning, when I decided to transition to parts, in the early days, it was all sets or minifigures. But when I started trying to sell parts, and the way that started, it actually goes back to the parts that are the oldest in my Bricklink store. I had bought these sets that had the Stormtrooper in it. It's called Final Duel 2. It had Stormtrooper, Luke Skywalker, and the Imperial Guard. And I was selling the minifigures on eBay. And then I had all these parts, and I'm like, I don't really need these parts. I had all these things that would be like the ends on the train, the little fences that were in that set. And I had some plates, and I'm like, I don't have any use for these personally. And it was hard to sell that on eBay because nobody's looking for that. So I put them in my Bricklink store. And then I started slowly adding more parts, but I had no strategy. It's like if somebody ordered that, okay, I'll go over there to the box and pull them out of the box. Well, then I ended up having like 3 boxes full of parts. There was no box numbers, there were no bag numbers. It was just I had to go find it in the box. So once it got to a certain level, I remember going through every box looking for like one piece. And it was just such a colossal waste of time. I said, I got to come up with a better system. So then I started putting things in drawers and bags and labeling them. Sometimes I'm like, which one's the new part? Which one's the used part? I don't know. That was frustrating. I think that was probably the hardest part, learning how to organize things where you can find them quickly. You're not wasting time doing that. And then all those years taping labels to the box. I don't have them with me, but you got a piece of paper and it's got a label here and a label here, and you put it in the printer and it prints the label. Oh my goodness, that's so much better than taking the label, cutting it in half with scissors, and then taping it to the box. I mean, I did that for years. I didn't want to invest in the label, the stickered labels. Man, that's so easy. Yeah. So, I guess those things were challenges I had to overcome.
So, did you ever think you could ever build a brand and business around reselling Lego?
I knew it was potential there because as a collector from the 70s through 2000, I didn't register an eBay account until 2000. So I knew that there would be other people like me, because when I think back to the sets I wanted as a kid or as a teenager or as a young adult, and I couldn't afford them. Like, they were on the shelf for 3 years maybe, then they're gone, and then like you can't get them, you can't find them. There was no market to go find them, not as far as I knew. So when eBay came along, I think that's why the prices were so high in the early days of eBay, because you had a lot of people like, oh, there that is, I can get it now. So you go and people were bidding on stuff so they could get stuff that they wanted their whole life. And then I started discovering other stuff that I didn't know even existed. And so I knew that selling, because when you saw those prices, like, whoa, yeah, you can, when this stuff goes on clearance at Walmart or Target, I can go buy it and I can wait a couple of years and then sell it. And I think that's what a lot of people did that were trying to make money just on eBay, let alone Bricklink, but they were buying sets on clearance, and then, or even at full price, and then hoping they would go up in price because they'd see something that was made 4 years ago that's like worth 10 times the amount it was when it was in the stores. I knew that there was always the potential to make money doing that.
Okay, so now we're going to transition a bit into daily logistics. How do you run your store? What are logistics involved? One of the questions that I'd like to understand better is, uh, as your store has grown over the years, we talked a little bit about pains and managing your store, but how about what do you do? How do you deal with the growing pains in your store? You mentioned about having to reorganize your inventory to make things easier to find. Do you use resellable bags in any way?
Yeah, yeah. That's how it pretty much started, was with the resellable bags. It's funny because I actually anticipated this coming to this point because in when I had all these comic books over there. That's why I'm pointing this way now. And I had bought a massive lot in 1995, and almost all of the comics were not bagged. So I had this company, which I can't remember. In fact, the guy actually remembered me like 10 years later when I bought from him again. He said, "I remember you. You bought all these bags." 'Cause I'd buy the comic book bags so I could bag my comic book. Well, one time I went to buy the comic book bags, and they had the little Ziploc bags, all these different sizes that they were just putting on clearance. And they were dirt cheap. When I bought my comic book bag, I said, "Well, I'll get some of these because they might come in handy for storing or selling Lego parts." So I want to do that. So I mean, I had tons of those bags. And some of them they're actually not practical, because some of them were like really long and things like that. But it was just a free, or not free, but a really cheap source of Ziploc bags. So when I started doing breaking things down by the part, I'd use those bags, and then I came up with a system. I'd write with a Sharpie on the bag, new or used, N or W, and then I'd put the part number on the bag. Some bags would have multiple parts. I'd write each part number that was in that bag, and then I would store things by the part type. So all the plates were in a bag, all the tiles, or I mean, not in a bag, in a drawer, and then you'd have kind of just all the way that Bricklink broke things down to different part types. That's pretty much the way my doors were, and then I'd have a label on the door. But even that wasn't real efficient because they weren't all in the right order. You just had to remember where the plate drawer was, or the tile drawer was, by doing things that way, you kind of started noticing, well, I sure do spend a lot of time at the tile drawer. People seem to like tiles or modified bricks or plates. I mean, not modified bricks, but modified plates. You're always getting things out of there. So you started to learn what types of parts are selling more than others without using any kind of software. You just realize where you're at all the time. But even doing that, it wasn't real efficient. Having a numbered system is better because it's sequential. You don't need to worry about anything other than, okay, just have every number or letter, alphanumeric, however you want to do it, and then you go to that part. Use the remarks and go wherever it's assigned, and there's a part. And man, the way the store is laid out, there's a table that you kind of put things on. You can it's only a couple of steps to get to majority of the content in the store. So it doesn't take that long to pick an order. I mean, just most orders can be picked in under a minute. And it's just a matter of counting and verifying and double check. But it's incredible. Much more simpler having numbered drawers, containers, however you want to do it. If you just want to put them in containers and then have your containers labeled, it's easy, right? One of the stores that's featured on Bricklink right now, if you go to the homepage, it's Ace of Bricks. And when I saw his warehouse, I was like, ugh, it looked bad to me. But he had like bins, he had a system, he had all these shelves, and it's interesting because I think a lot of these sellers were like me and others. They just evolved over time, and they had their own system, and they built on that system. And it was like he had all these little baggies of parts in bins in this huge warehouse, and it looked overwhelming to me. But he sells a lot, so he's obviously got it down to science for him. His store looks totally different than you go look at Clutch's store. But
Yeah, you're absolutely right there, and that's something I kind of want to comment on in reference to making this ebook. That the way you start your store is not the way, or rather, will not remain the same throughout the growth of the store itself. You may start small and have a few stack-ons, but eventually you grow to the point where you have bins or shelves and everything else there involved. So this is kind of one thing I wanted to highlight a bit. It seems to me that you could start your store off, but it's really hard to start it off really big unless you have that upfront capital to make it big. Would you have
yes,
any thoughts?
I do not think, unless you have a lot of capital and you can put that capital at risk, I don't think it would be smart. Let's say you have no Lego, or you have very little Lego, and you're wanting to start a Bricklink store. Um, I don't think it would be wise to go and take $10,000 or $20,000 and just go out and buy a bunch of Lego and put it in your store and think it's going to sell. It just doesn't happen that way. So if you're going to get into that level of spending, you need to definitely have a plan, because you won't be buying a lot of China and Ninjago and Duplo or whatever is cheap at the time, and you won't be selling it. I think the way to go, if you're starting out and maybe space is a problem, you look for the sets that have maybe the minifigures that will sell. Because, I mean, that's the way these Amazon sellers are. They go buy a set, and all they're going to do is sell the minifigure. They don't even care about the parts in the set. So you look for where the most of the value of that set is. And usually it's going to be in the minifigure. If a set's worth $100, there might be $60 or more tied up just in the minifigures, depending on how many figures you've got. So that might be a good way to get started, because usually minifigures are going to sell. You don't have to have the massive, if you got them priced right. If you got them priced too high, they're not going to sell. But that might be a way to start, but you just can't. I mean, I literally have dozens of times people have commented, "Can you help me out? I just started a Bricklink store and nobody's buying anything in my store." And I go to their store and they got 400 parts in their store. I'm like, nobody wants these. All you did was part out this set that had 400 parts. If anybody wants any of those parts, they'll just go out and buy the set. They're not going to, buy one or two parts from you from the set. You got to have in your store something that people want. So if you're going to start from scratch, you need to figure out what it is that people want to buy. Otherwise, just do like I did and build your store up over many years and then start selling. Clutch, he's built his up rapidly. Having a good strategy and a system to selling and then improving it over the years. And I've improved mine just more so from the standpoint of being more efficient and saving a lot of my time in the way we run the store.
So could you agree that if you had some kind of best practice list or something that served as a mentor or guide in becoming a Bricklink seller, do you think that's something that would benefit everyone?
Yeah, probably having a little checklist of things you need to consider before you start a store, and then once you decide that's what you want to do, things that you can make sure you understand. I think that's more important necessarily even what you buy and what you have to sell, is that you know how to do things. You know how to send somebody an invoice. I cannot stand it. Sorry if you've ever asked me this question, not you, but anybody that's watching this live stream, because people ask me, well, I set up a Bricklink store and I don't know how to send an invoice. I'm going to say always when they respond, ask that question, I say, well, the first thing you need to do is go close your store until you learn how to do that. Don't open a store and then don't know how to respond to a message. Don't know how to edit an item in your store. I'll see people that, they have a 2x4 brick that's $40, but they meant for it to be 40 cents. I mean, you need to know how to go and change those things. And you need to know how to send an invoice. You need to know how to print a label. You need to know how to charge the correct amount for shipping. You need to know to check UPS website to make sure they haven't raised the prices. Sometimes if you're not paying attention, they can jump the prices literally overnight. And then you're like, uh-oh, I didn't charge them enough for shipping or whatever.
Well, if someone's buying a $40 brick, 2x4 brick, I definitely want to know more about where they live and how they ship to them more often. Okay, so I realize...
I don't mean to interrupt you, but when I closed my store, all right, as a joke, I had it closed for a long time, several months, almost a year even. And at one point I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do my 2x4 red brick joke. So I took one 2x4 brick that had nicks on it, had a picture of it, and I put it on there because it was unique. I put it on there for $500. And that was the only item I had in my store. I had one item in my store. It was a 2x4 brick, and it was $500. A rare 2x4 brick. Bricklink removed that item because it was actually, I guess it was against their terms of service somehow. I was like, I'm glad I didn't get my store shut down, but I don't know what the problem was because nobody was going to buy it, but apparently maybe it should have been a custom item or something, but yeah, they didn't like that I priced it at $500, so they removed my item. I was mad. Anyway,
interesting. I wasn't aware that Bricklink would actually bother to monitor that.
Yeah, I was surprised. The only thing I can figure is somebody reported it somehow. But it's like I wasn't trying to scam anybody, and it was a joke while my store was closed. But I opened my store.
Well, I do imagine because they offer statistics on average prices over 6 months and current inventory and the like. Maybe you messed up someone's economy on how they priced out their parts. Not sure.
That's why you go by sales average, not current sales inventory or current inventory, because all it takes is a few people overpricing their stock to make it seem like something's worth a lot, but really in the end, it's just like on eBay. It doesn't really matter what somebody's asking for something, it's what it's actually selling for. And I see people all the time, I'm like, why are you even wasting anybody's time pricing it that high? But people try.
So have you ever had to move your inventory around?
Yes. I've had to move it to different locations. I'm in one area here, I had it in another area back there, and it's actually gone from this room to that room and back to this room. Fortunately, it's even actually gone upstairs. That's why I had to close my store, because we were remodeling down here, and I put up sheetrock, and I had to move all the bins, all the stack-ons upstairs, so they were all stacked together where you couldn't even get to them in another room upstairs. So I've moved it quite a bit just within this one house, just from reorganizing things. So now I kind of got it a place where I like it. I got the stack-ons attached to the wall. I got aisles in the store, and so you don't have to go far to get to the inventory.
So
it's not that hard.
Okay. So do you ever have to consolidate your inventory for your store?
You're talking about like if you have the same product in multiple locations? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, that's correct.
Well, that's where the BrickTsar software comes in. It's like when I add stuff, it's just going to add it to the existing lot. It's one of those check boxes you do on Bricklink. You want to combine lots. I think a lot of sellers, and it's actually easier to do it the non-consolidatory way. Like you want to add something, you just upload that inventory, but then you end up having multiple parts in different locations. I mean, the same part in multiple locations, So I don't think that's very smart, just from because if somebody wants a bunch of one product and you got it in 10 different drawers or 10 different bags or whatever in your store, then you got to go to each of those to get it, whereas you could have just had it in one. So I consolidate everything. if there's any items in my store right now that aren't consolidated, there's two reasons. One, there's new and used, so those will always be separate. But the other is I just made a mistake and didn't consolidate them. I didn't check the box or whatever, and I uploaded it. And I usually, when I notice those, I'll put them in the same bin.
So when would you do that consolidation? Would it be at the point where you're uploading every time you've parted out, or is it something you do on a infrequent basis?
It's something you do when you upload it. If you use BrickTsar and then you take that, let's say you part out a set or multiple copies of a set. So you've gone through and you've priced everything, you've added remarks, done all that on BrickTsar. You go to export it, the XML file to Bricklink. You basically what you're doing is you're copying that whole file, and there's a little box on Bricklink. You paste it on there, and then Bricklink has a bunch of different options. And since remarks are very, 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 very important because that's where the location is, you want to concoct. I don't know the word. It's that you want to combine them. It's got. I'd have to look on Bricklink. It's concatenate.
Oh, concatenate.
Concatenate. Yes. I can never say that word. I can see it and know what it is, but you want to do that. So then what it's doing is it combines the same part into an existing lot, which is great because then, like, especially if you already got the part in your store, you just go and put that part in that existing drawer. I don't know if you've talked about this with Clutch, but it does present the problem if you got a stack on, and all of a sudden now you got too many parts for that drawer. But what I'll do, instead of having two drawers for that part, I'll then set those aside, and that's when I then go and manually change that, where all those parts will be in one drawer. So I'll get a bigger drawer, dump them all in that, and then manually change it on Bricklink.
That's definitely a part of the consolidation process. I know Clutch has mentioned where he gets a large number of certain parts. It doesn't make sense to divide it out but on the small drawers, and those drawer spaces are valuable real estate for other parts. So he will pull them out and put them into a larger bin, or eventually move them to a shoebox, and that gets updated in inventory with a different label wherever it's located.
Yes. I do something similar, probably not as efficiently as him, but it's like small drawer, big drawer, shoebox. I use some of the pick-a-brick cups. I use the bigger box, like the bigger size box. I haven't gotten to the really great big box yet, so of course I don't have anything to. But I also got these little boxes that were the Lego games. When Lego Shop at Home was clearing out all those games that nobody wanted, I mean, you're getting some of them for like $1.48. Things like that. So I was buying as many as I could, and those are sturdy boxes. They're not the thin stock like a typical Lego box. So I would turn the box inside out, and I got my alphanumerics on those. Those are a little harder though to get the parts out of. So then I start thinking, okay, what types of parts do I want to put in those boxes? But it saved me, 94 cents on a shoebox. So I just use those. I got at least a couple of hundred of them or more, so that are actually used for storage of parts.
Do you regularly go out and buy more inventory? Like you see a set on sale or something like that? Do you normally just go out and buy that on a regular basis, or just whenever it just seems like a good time?
It's more now. It's just whenever it's a good time. I think in the last few months, I've pretty much transitioned to just buying stuff where I'm getting either stuff that I want, stuff that's such a good deal that I can't pass it up, or I want to have one of these different sets, whether or not it's something I personally like or not, or maybe it's something my son wants. So, like these little poly bags with a Batman movie or something, I may get as many of those as I can if they're on sale or something, but I'm not actively looking. But I will also tell you that every time I go on a Target, I go look at the clearance. So if I go in there and then there's stuff that's 75% off, yeah, I'll probably buy it if it's something that I like or something that I see could be in potential. But I'm not looking for those daily deals or weekly deals or just constantly looking to add things. Mainly because I got several hundred sets that I've never even parted out. So I got stuff that I need to sell. So there's no point in going buying more until I start putting a dent in this stuff because I'm running out of room down here.
When you find yourself, you said you go to Target and find a clearance. When you find yourself in a brick and mortar store and you see the clearance items for Lego, do you ever bother to approach the manager and say, "Hey, look, you have this on sale for $3. I've got $2.50 for it. Could we maybe? Would you be willing to sell this for $2.50?" You ever negotiate with that?
No, I've never done that. I've only done it if something on their advertising was deceptive, where it looked like a set was marked off and it didn't ring up that way. That's the only time I've ever had to deal with store personnel. I don't even think I've ever really talked to a manager. Um, it's just I just want to get whatever the deal is. I want to get that deal, and I've never. I'm not much of a haggler. I'll have people wanting to do trade. That's why I don't trade with people because I don't. I'm not. I just want to buy stuff at a certain price, or if it's a good price, I'll buy it. But if you are offering me different trade, I don't want to go back and forth negotiating. I'm just not. I'm not that type of person. There's some people that are really good at that. That's why I colossally fail when I go to the yard sales at Brick Fair or Brickfest because I am not a haggler. I mean, I practically gave away a lot of stuff this past year at Philly Brickfest because I made some bad trades. I mean, I gave people some good value. I actually gave some people stuff because I didn't want to take it back home with me. So I'm not that person. I'm just not good at it. Never have been.
Okay. I only mentioned this question because I noticed Big B, he would have, in one of the video streams he did, he mentioned how he would go to a manager and look at a sale. He would first look at the clearance and he would look at the tag to see if they had a date when they marked it clearance. And if it was like a month ago, they marked it down, then he would approach the manager and say, "Hey, I want to buy everything, but how about I only have this much on me right now. Would you take that?" And so that's why I asked that question.
Walmart, sometimes different stores will do a 50% off clearance. And I have had the clerks tell me, or the cashiers tell me, well, we're going to have this sale tomorrow where this is all 50% off. Why don't you wait till then? I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh, well, that goes into a different question I have about networking, but I guess we could bring it up now. How do you set up your network of people who will give you information about the best deals that are coming around on Lego?
I'm not actively looking for that. I know there's some websites that people use, Brick Picker or stuff. To be honest with you, I got a problem with some of the people that are on those sites and some of the practices that people get involved in. I have talked to the Toys R Us that's down here in Kennesaw, Georgia, because I've been ticked off because I know there is a local seller that goes in there when they get the promotional poly bags and he's buying all of them because they'll get them on Sunday and I can't get in there on Sunday. By Monday morning, they're all gone. And I was like, "You sold all these to one person, didn't you?" Like you need to have lot limits. And then when I see like when they have the clearance on the brick boxes at Black Friday, people go and they'll get a shopping cart full of them and get 15 of them or something. I'm like, no, I guess I'm not going to get any of them this year. I don't like that. I don't want to be that guy. Yes, I filled up my shopping cart on clearance, and I said to me, clearance is a whole different animal because it's like stuff that's set there that nobody wants. But when stuff's new in the store, don't go buy the whole store because somebody else might want it. And I mean, I've been in the store where I was getting a bunch of stuff, and somebody said, "Hey, is that a good deal?" I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "You want one or some of them here? I'll give them to them." But it's like I'm not going to be that. I don't want to be that guy that some of these sellers are. And it's going to ruin the hobby. I've talked about this some in the past. I've seen it with comic books. I've seen it with baseball cards. You get people that are in it just to make money. It's not because it's something they love. It's not a hobby they love. It's just they want it. They have that pretense that they like the hobby, but they're in it to make money. And they ruin the hobby for everybody because it's limited edition. This item that Lego is doing just for kids, like this promotion with this Batman poly bag that you can get at the stores. You got all these adults going in there and getting them. Lego specifically wanted these just for kids in a certain age group. I know there are AFOLs that have already gotten them because they talked to the store employee, and the store employee let them get it. And I don't have one. I didn't get one because I'm too old to get it. I would like to have one, but I think little things like that, they can creep in and ruin the hobby for everybody.
Okay, well, you do bring up another interesting point that I have a question on regarding the mindset of a Lego seller. What type of person would you advise to get into the hobby, or maybe as a business venture of selling Lego?
I think my personal opinion is that you need to love Lego. Because I've worked in auto parts distributor where it was European auto parts that we picked the parts and we sent them to different mechanic shops that needed that part. They were working on a particular car. I did not love auto parts. I did not care anything about auto parts. That was just a job. I would not ever open an auto parts store. I had no desire to do anything like that. So I think with Lego, if to be a good Lego seller, I think you need to like the hobby because then you're going to understand your buyer better. Yeah, it's not going to be just a dollar and cent relationship. It's going to be what people want, how people expect their stuff to be packed. And I'm a little different than some people because I know some people are really particular about things, and it's kind of why I think it was one of the things you asked, one of the questions, but used versus new. I've really stopped selling used. I mean, I have used parts in the inventory, but I don't actively look to ever add used because people are pretty snobbish sometimes about the certain conditions and stuff. And I'm like, I was never that way. I mean, a brand new Lego set that you just opened, those bricks are likely to have nicks on them. There are people that were like, well, these were supposed to be new and there's nicks on them. And I was like, I don't want to deal with people like that. That they don't have everything pristine mint condition. And so you dealing with used, you're like, they buy it as used, but they still expect it to be mint condition, and it's not going to happen. So there are people that want to buy a sealed set, and there's not a single scuff mark on the set. I said, have you seen how Lego ships them?
Actually, I have. But you do go into how the personality or the mindset is certainly different. And I can agree with you that if you don't love Lego, it's really hard to build your customer service around the product that you have no love for.
And you'll make more mistakes too, I think. You'll make more people upset. Maybe if you didn't provide things in a certain way or didn't understand what they were asking. And yeah, you'll buy stuff because you're thinking that's a good deal when it's really not a good deal because there's nothing in that set anybody wants. You'll make those types of bad decisions. I mean, you'll learn over time, but why not love it to begin with? And then when you're doing something with something that you like, it's a lot easier.
I definitely agree with you there. Coming back to daily logistics, I've seen videos where you've parted out sets and you have a certain strategy about doing that. When you part out do you need to have the same number of bins as lots the sets involves?
No, no, it's sometimes the bins more from the actual set that I'm parting out. And what I mean by that is when you're parting stuff out, you're opening a bag, you're dumping the bag out, and now you got a bag. And that bag may be used for storage until like you'll take and put that in the bin. We don't usually part out down here where the inventory is. It'd probably be a lot easier if I had a table dedicated for that. But we're usually upstairs in the living room floor doing it, so stuff's on the floor, and then you got to take it and haul it all back down here. So I'll have, some of the empty containers or some of the empty boxes, and then we'll just start pouring. I don't even look to see how many different lots there's going to be in the set. We'll just start parting them out. And I know Clutch mentioned in the video he did with you, but it's exactly what we do. It's like, say you got 5 copies or 10 copies of a set. You open all the boxes and then you group everything by bag number. If the bags aren't numbered, you put the identical bags together, and then you start with those. You open those up. Sometimes they got little bags in them. You take those out. You do the big pieces first and just work your way, because the big pieces are easiest to pull out. And then you just work your way down. I'll usually, if I'm doing like a really large number of a particular set, especially it's usually with the smaller sets, see what is in a bag, and then I'll open one, part it out just to see what I have, and then dump all the rest of them and do all those at once, like that. And it goes pretty quick, really. The sets that have the bigger sets, obviously it's going to take a lot longer. I'd rather do the medium-sized sets or sets that have a lot of the same parts in them, like some of the buildings. I like doing the buildings, but something like a Technic set or a set that's got 1,000 parts and there's 400 different types of parts. It's like, I don't want to do something like that. That is very hard to do.
Okay, so thinking about new store owners who are coming into this, they're brand new and they're trying to build up their infrastructure. What type of storage containers would you advise that they start buying? Now, I know with Clutch, and I believe you as well, use shoeboxes, stack-ons, and Ziploc bags, as well as shelving. Could you provide your experience on how much and what type they should buy?
I definitely, the stack-ons are easier, but that's a cost that a lot of new store owners might not be ready to absorb to begin with. Plus, the price of stack-ons fluctuates so much through the year. You got to always be checking so that you don't, you can get in like $12 or $13 sometimes, and other times they're in the 20s. So you don't want to pay too much for something, and it's probably not the best for a new person to start out with. So Ziploc bags and any type of recycled box that you can have, I would recommend something like that. I see people use cups or cheaper sandwich boxes, stuff that's relatively cheap. People have gone and got like bead containers or just whatever's cheap for you to start with. That's what I would recommend. And then as your store grows, then you go to the more advanced things like the shoebox containers. Shoebox containers really aren't that expensive, except if you're like me and you want to have just one, or Clutch, you want to have one lot in a box, then it gets very expensive. But if you have a shoebox container, I'm going to put all my tiles in here, and then you have bags. But that's the way I did before I transitioned to the stack-ons. I'd have a shoebox with maybe 10 to 20 different Ziploc bags inside there. Which is another thing that's great about the Ziploc bags, is that if somebody buys an entire lot, you just take the bag out and you set it aside. If you're confident that your quantity is right, then that's quick. That's why I say some orders you can do in a minute or less if you got that type of system. and they're buying the whole lot. I always love it when they buy. Somebody actually, they were leaving like one or two pieces in the lot because they felt bad. They wanted to make sure they left something for somebody else that came into my store, and I was like, wish you just bought those last. You bought 199, you left one. I wish you just went ahead and bought that one.
That's kind of curious. I'm not sure why anyone would really do that, but okay. So for now, I know that you have your inventory as a part of your home space, and we all know that Clutch uses a commercial space for his. Would you say there are benefits to keeping your entire inventory at home? And perhaps maybe discuss a little bit about insurance and risk.
Yeah, I think having it home is obviously a lot simpler if you have the space. Now, if you're Clutch originally, he had it in his whole house, his whole apartment, and that's a lifestyle problem. I mean, it makes it tough to have people over. And it's just right there in front of you. I even joked with him one time, I said, it's going to be in your kitchen before long. So, it's good to have a separate location in that case. But, if you got the space in your house, it's totally more convenient because I don't have to drive somewhere. I don't have to rent a space. I know Port City Bricks, actually, they're renting a place now that they got pretty cheap, and they're thinking about expanding it. And I was like, whoa. It's like, I can't even fathom that right now, paying rent for space, and then you got to get all the other liabilities that go with that. I mean, especially if you were in a situation where, to me, if you're to that point where you're going to have a separate space, then you probably also need an employee. I think Bricks for Chris, he had a separate space, and he was doing it all by himself, and he was killing himself. I mean, not literally killing himself, but he was working around the clock pretty much, and that's just not a good. He didn't like doing that, and I don't think anybody would want to do that. So if you have to justify renting a space, you'd have to be doing the volume to justify that, which means you probably need an employee. That you're starting to get into other costs, other risks, and then your taxes get even more complicated. This is a lot easier.
So considering you have a large inventory at home, have you taken any kind of insurance and added maybe an additional insurance to your home to cover that inventory?
I do have a lot of personal property insurance, but I think I need to start making sure I'm evaluating that from year to year and having a little more accurate inventory. Actually, personally, with me, the problem is not that store, it's everything else. That store is only a tiny portion of what I have. And I'm not talking, I mean, I still got the comic books, I got the trains, I got diecast cars, I got slot cars, there's other things in here that are far more valuable than what is in my store inventory. The only good thing about my store inventory, I have a record of it. I know what's in there. So if the house burns down, we're pretty much covered on that. I just got to do a better job of inventory. What else is in here? So that's why my goal this year is inventory in my personal collection. That's what I'm trying to do on my YouTube channel now. Is I'm going through every set that I have. I'm taking an inventory. I originally was going to put all that on BrickTsar, but I'm still going to do that. But I think I'm going to use the BrickTsar software, and instead of doing it for things that I'm going to upload to Bricklink, I'm going to do it and save it as a file on my computer, so that now I'll have a record. I'll have a video record, so that if the house burns down, I can show the insurance company this is the value of my goods, and then make sure as I look each year at my insurance that the personal property will cover that. I think even with that, there's a limit to what they'll pay. But we'll see.
I think you bring up an excellent point here. It's valuable to not only just consider the value of your Bricklink store itself, but especially as a hobbyist seller, You also have to consider the value of your personal collection whenever you're looking for insurance to cover your property value.
Yeah, and I think there's probably a number of people that, they live in apartments, so they're not a homeowner. I have homeowners insurance, and that's going to cover a lot of things. But if you're renting from somebody, you have to get insurance, because if there's some type of flood or a fire where it just damages things, it doesn't like burn the whole place down or whatever. Because I knew somebody that their baseball card collection got wet, but they had renters insurance, so they were actually able to get reimbursed for that. So that was pretty cool, because otherwise, if you don't have renters insurance, the person that you're renting from is not liable to pay you for anything that you lost in something like that. So whether you're living in a home or renting, yeah, it's good to know what you have, especially if your collection is valuable.
So you mentioned earlier how it's great to have BrickTsar to handle your inventory management. What other tools would you use to handle or make your life easier for Bricklink? For example.
I don't use a lot. I'm either on PayPal, Bricklink, or the U.S. Postal Service website. Those are pretty much the only things I use. There was a time when I would use FedEx for shipping, but once they closed their warehouse they had up here, they moved down, so I don't use FedEx anymore. But so there's as far as inventory and things, I don't use a lot of other. I'm not to that level where I need a lot of the other things. Although I would like to start, instead of using a paper log for mileage and things, I'm thinking about using one of these apps that does it for you. And I need to get better with the spreadsheet, so I'm not dealing with notebooks of things. I got boxes with the receipts, and then I got notebooks with lists of what I've, everything, dates and stuff. And it's it'd be better just to have it on a spreadsheet or something.
But what about weight scales, label makers, sorting trays?
Oh, yes. That type of stuff is, you definitely need a scale, and a scale that's accurate to at least about a tenth or 2/10 of an ounce. And you want a scale that you can trust. And it may be even multiple scales in case something happened to your scale. You need tape. You need this kind of tape. I had my store closed for a few months, and we had on the table where we packed the orders, I had a regular Scotch tape dispenser. And I went, because I was going to tape up some of the bags. I'm like, I have 4 of these, all right? I own 4 tape dispensers, and I couldn't find them yesterday. I don't know what, they wandered off, the kids have grabbed them, or I took one to another part. And so you don't realize how valuable something like that is until you can't find it. The other thing is cutters or scissors. Sharpies are good. A label maker, you want a label maker. A place to store your padded envelopes. That's one reason I so prefer selling parts over sets, because it's so much easier to pack and ship parts.
Not to mention cheaper to ship the parts as opposed to sets.
Yes, because now there's a guy who lives in California. His last name's Lee, and he's my number one. He's had the most orders in my store. And I ran into a guy at a brick fair. He's like, "You ever had anybody?" He said his name. "You ever had this guy buy from you?" I'm like, "Yeah, 37 times." And he's always buying tons of sealed sets. And it's so he was always buying my high dollar stuff, and I was always, it was sets, and I was packing it, where it could get to California. But now it'd be it costs so much to ship it to him, because I'm on the East Coast, he's on the West Coast, and so he hasn't bought from me that much lately, since I don't have as many sealed sets. But yeah, the cost. Even though there are people that are willing to pay the cost, whether it be domestic or international, I really feel guilty because I mean I try to charge people what the shipping cost is, and if it costs $40, I'm like, I wouldn't want to pay $40 to ship this, but that's what it costs these days to ship certain packages anymore. But when you're dealing with parts, it's a lot better. It's not nearly a sticker shock on the cost of the shipping. And we were talking about all the different things you need, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So
Usually,
one of the things I know that Klutz likes to use would be sorting trays. He has specific kind of sorting trays he uses. I know Big B, he likes to use the trays that come out of the advent calendars. Different things like that. I know some people try to use the really cheap, the like $1 the organizer bins, or they're like for hobby bins, but they're all square shape. And the problem with that is trying to dig out that one last part.
and that's exactly what I was going to tell you, because they had those, Lego made the little storage bins that it's got some little squares and some bigger squares in it, and they were dirt cheap. But I guess they weren't a good seller. That's how you can usually tell something wasn't a good seller. They'll have it, and then nobody's buying it, and then Lego will just blow it out at a dirt cheap price. And I got tons of them. Clutch got tons of them. I know a lot of other sellers got them. And that is the problem with them. They're square. They're great for sorting, but then when you go to get the one by ones, it's you end up dropping one, or you'll want to go into another bin and you won't realize it. I think that's the biggest cause of shortages in my inventory. My wife will call me up at work or text me. She'll say, I'm missing one or two of these. And so what I end up doing is getting it I'll look up what set that part is in and see if I have it somewhere else in my basement, and I'll have my son go get Jacob, he'll go get it out of this set here, and we'll put it in the store and we'll ship it to him. And then months may go by, and then I find that part in another drawer it wasn't supposed to be in because it got mixed up when we were parting out. That was a long story to explain why I like those trays as much. But the thing, that's why I like using individual containers like I'll take the empty stack-ons. Like when a drawer is empty, instead of leaving it hanging out, we physically take it out, have a box I put them in, and then we get enough of them to part out a set. I'll take those up, and then when you're parting out the set, you just put it into the stack-on drawer.
How do you ship to your customers? Now, I know you run everything from home, but do you have a regular schedule where the post office comes by, or the delivery truck service comes by, or do you personally take it all to the delivery office?
We have a pretty convenient situation where we're at because the post office is very close to our house. You'll have to drive, but it's not like that big a deal to drive there. I could have the postal carrier pick it up, but they pick up at a time that they could pick it up, but then I could have other orders that I could have shipped that day. So to me, it's better. My post office closes at 4:30, so we'll just wait, and then once we're pretty sure we got all the orders for that day that have paid and are ready, then we'll go up to the post office at one time. And it's a real short drive, so that's not that big a deal. If somebody lived where that wasn't convenient, you can have the post office just come and pick them up at your house. I'm sure that's what a lot of people do that ship regularly, but we personally make it to the post office. They'll scan them in right then too, so we know they're in the system. Because I've had that where she didn't scan it one time, and then the package took a little longer than expected to get there, and then apparently nobody else scanned it along the way. They actually have a different system internally where they can track stuff than what is visible on the website. And finally, somebody scanned it somewhere, because I thought the package was going to be lost, but they finally scanned it, and then it ended up showing up. It just took them a long time to get there. I said, so after that, it's like, I take it up there. You make sure to scan all of our packages right then.
So for new sellers, let's say you had to start this all over again as a Bricklink seller. What would you recommend new sellers do for shipping? And in the context of what do they use, what do they package it in? I know in a previous YouTube video, you were showing how you would recycle recycle existing plastic bags and boxes, what would you recommend for new sellers to do?
Okay, and that goes back. It depends on if you're going to be selling sets or pieces. I was a box hoarder because any box that was really a good box, like old Lego boxes, where they ship stuff to you, anything if you're buying stuff on Amazon boxes, boxes that were being thrown out at work that were perfectly good boxes, I would take those, turn them inside out. I went the extra step of not just reusing the box. I'd take the box apart, cut it inside, or turn it inside out. If it was too big, I'd cut it down to the right size. And so if you're going to be selling sets, you're going to need boxes. So I have never paid for a box, and I have shipped thousands of boxes between eBay, because almost all the comic books pretty much shipped in boxes. All the sets were shipped in boxes. I've never had to pay for boxes. You just put a little bit of effort. It's not that hard to find boxes. You can find boxes. You can go to Walmart and get boxes, and you find out when they're putting stock out. You can always find free boxes. And then if you're going to be shipped, it's just the way it is now. Most stuff has to go priority mail anyway, especially if it's over 4 pounds. So why not use the free boxes you get from the post office? So that's what I would recommend, and also getting the padded envelopes for priority mail. Those are great because sometimes when you get to where the order is over 13 ounces, it'll still fit in that priority mail envelope, and that's going to be the cheapest way to ship it, because it's a flat rate no matter how much you can put in there. And I've used those quite a bit. Padded envelopes are good, but I would look on eBay and find the cheap prices for them and buy them that way instead of buying them from an office supply store, because it's going to be more than double if you go to Walmart or Office Depot or a place like that. But if you go to these people on eBay, there's tons of them. It's easy to find the bubble mailer listing. I get the ones like this guy used. This is one of my packages I just got in the mail the other day. This is the most common size here, 6x9. You get a bunch of these. Most of your orders, if you're selling pieces, will fit there, unless you're a high volume seller, then you might need the bigger ones. But they're not that expensive. You just if you're just starting out, get a box of each different size. You got to have some initial cost at the beginning. So make sure you have your tape, make sure you have your scale, make sure you have your envelopes. There was something else I thought of a minute ago. There's always a printer, a laser printer, not an inkjet printer, a laser printer. Because inkjet printers, unless you know how to refill them cheaply, they're a lot more expensive. But I would highly recommend a good, cheap laser jet printer that prints in black and white, not a color one, the black and white one, so that you can print your labels. That is a huge time saver. And then buying the labels on eBay, they're really cheap. They're well worth the time that they would save you. And the PayPal, USPS, the way those labels show up, they print perfectly on those 8.5 by 11 sheets, like I said before, where there's one on this side and one on that side. You just turn it upside down in the printer and you print it. So that would be a huge time saver if you know you're going to do this regularly.
So let's say you had to start over today and you have all your inventory, but you don't have shelves or anything like that. Your storage is a mess. Let's say you had to start over. How do you future-proof and scale your storage needs as a Lego reseller?
Never buy anything that you won't need later. So, and that, when I say that, I mean, I guess technically, those bins that have the parts, the stack-ons, if I stop selling Lego, I might not need those bins. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, this hobby's not really one I don't think that's really a problem. future growth because all you need is more bins. You don't need, I mean, I've seen people that have stores that look the same as mine, but they're on a smaller scale. They got a few stack rooms, they got a few shoebox containers, they got a few odds and ends on their table, and then you look at Clutch's store. Clutch's store dwarfs mine, but it a lot of it looks the same. So I think the scale is just how much of what you have. Yeah, well, I guess here's one thing you might need. If your store got so big, you might need little carts to go around the store, something like that. Um, and I actually have a cart, but my wife, she likes to get in the steps on her Fitbit, so she'll actually, even though it'll be easier just to walk with a tray or something and just get the pieces out, she just prefers to walk. Because I told her about it once. I said, you walk and get the piece, and then you come back, and you walk, and you come back. Well, she's getting her steps, so it depends on what you want to do.
Okay, so let's kind of move forward a bit and discuss how do you manage your annual taxes in relationship to your Bricklink store?
Yeah, I hate taxes. I really do. And I'm I'm to the point now where I've been doing my taxes myself, but it's gotten where I'm going to need to get an accountant because not necessarily because of Bricklink, but because of YouTube. So the Bricklink wasn't that hard. It's basically you got to keep things income, outgo. You know, what you actually physically spend, and then what you take in. I am losing a huge write-off because I have got a 1,600 square foot basement, and I'm not showing a home office. So I would definitely, and that's where I'm going to need to get that squared away, and I want to do it the right way. So I'm actually losing money right now because I'm not writing off my home office. Um, so I would the easiest way. It does not cost that much to talk to an accountant or tax advisor, somebody like that. And if you're going to go into it as a business, you need to talk to somebody about that because taxes are very hard. I hate April because I'm going through so much data. I use some online software, Tax Act, for the business, and that way I make sure it gives me all the checklists I need to make sure that I'm reporting everything correctly and things like that. You know, I don't sell to the extent where I get one of those forms from PayPal. I do from YouTube. I get the W-9 or whatever. So it's you don't want to mess with the IRS if you live in the U.S. Make sure you report any income you have. I think there's a lot of people that sell on eBay that don't report their income, but I basically take what I sell and subtract things like fees and shipping and things like that. You subtract the cost of tape that you bought in that year, the cost of the goods sold, and then you come up with that amount. And then you got other write-offs like your mileage. Keep a good log of your mileage, especially if you're one that's going out looking for deals at brick and mortar stores. You need to log that mileage. You need to log the mileage going to the post office. Um, you, yeah, I'm missing big with the YouTube stuff. So that's why I really got to get somebody because I have not been writing off my internet. I have not been writing off my phone. I have not been writing off my utilities. That's all things that this money that I'm leaving out there on the table now, and so I need to go and get with somebody so that I'm doing it right. And that's why it was nice when everything was kind of small. When I was doing, I usually did about 10,000 in sales in a year. That's all. You know, I'm lightweight compared to these other guys, and it's like that wasn't that big a deal in keeping up with those taxes. But when you're getting where you got to worry about paying a penalty because you didn't take out enough self-employment tax and things like that. So you can get yourself in a big mess pretty quick. So get a tax accountant. Don't ask me. Don't ask another Bricklink to get a tax accountant to tell you what to do.
Okay. So, since we're talking about legal issues and the like, what other legal issues should a Bricklink seller look out for prior to and then during the operation of their Bricklink store?
Yeah, I see people that'll put the warnings like these are small pieces, don't swallow, and I don't ever do that, and maybe I should because I don't know that there's ever been a case where somebody has sued a Bricklink seller because they bought some parts from Bricklink and then their toddler swallowed the part, choked. I mean, I guess that could happen. Um, so, I see people that have really long terms of service on their the Bricklink page to cover all kinds of, how to deal with a problem. And I've been selling for 17 years now between Bricklink and eBay, and it's like I've never had a legal issue come up. That doesn't mean there couldn't be one come up in the future. I've always been able to deal with any problem that I've had, and I've taken a loss in order to deal with those problems sometimes. Like I've had one package. I've only had one package ever get lost. I absorbed the loss of that.
Well,
I,
that's rather lucky.
I think I it is. I mean, it is not. I think that's beyond the normal. I wish I knew exactly how many packages I've shipped. I know I'm in 5 digits. I mean, I know I've had to have shipped over 10,000 packages in the last 17 years. Um, until I've only lost one. I've had some that have taken 3 months to get there. But I have a theory in that there are a lot more lost packages when the shipper doesn't package the product properly. Like the box or the envelope they had, it was going to get busted. Like you can use a padded envelope, but if you put too heavy of an item or too sharp of an item in there, or you don't tape it good, it still might bust open. You may not use a thick enough cardstock on your box. You may not pack the box evenly. You may just put the item in the box and not put enough padding. And these are things that can cause damage to the box, which can cause damage to the label. And once the label gets damaged, they don't know what to do with it. And I think that's how a lot of packages get lost. The post office was brutal to the package, or UPS, or whoever is shipping it. But you ever see, I think it's Ace Ventura, the beginning of Ace Ventura, Pet Detective? He's disguised as a delivery man, and he's got that box, and he's just totally destroying that box as he's carrying it. And I said, that's the way I picture all of my boxes. I pretend that's the way the postal carrier is going to carry my box. So I'm going to make it pack it as best as I can where that doesn't happen, and make sure that the address is correct. That's another thing that I'll see things that kind of throw up a red flag to me. And that's another thing dealing with shipping overseas is like there's different rules for the shipping. There's some countries don't allow certain products, or you got to make sure the customs form is right. And if you don't have any of these one things, it can tie up your item in customs, or it might not even get to them. And I think a lot of whether or not, I'm saying all this, and I'll probably have a package get lost this week. But I think that.
Well, let's not jinx ourselves just yet. But I would ask, have you bothered to take a tax ID or?
No, I use a Social Security number right now, but I am, because of YouTube again, I'm going to register as a business with that. And I'm going to keep everything under the same umbrella. That's why I got to talk to somebody, because that's like, do I need to have 2 separate businesses? I'm trying to, I got to figure out what's the best for this. I kind of want to keep everything under the BrickTsar umbrella, which includes all the train stuff I do and all the Lego stuff. Just be this one brand, but under it, I'm doing all these other things. But I may be better having two different businesses here. So I'm going to have to find somebody that knows better. But because I'm more of a hobby seller, it's like the first year I reported taxes on my Bricklink. I actually showed when I did it as a business where I did the Schedule C. I had a loss. I mean, by the time I took all my expenses and filed my taxes, I actually had a paper loss for that year. And then every year since then, it's been a profit. But I forgot what I was talking about.
Well, we were talking about going to a CPA and filing for your taxes and the like.
Yeah,
But
if you need to, if you're going to have employees for sure. But if you're a sole proprietor, it can be your social security number, and if you're even if you're sole proprietor, you can go register your business name or get a business license. I think I need to. Is anybody from the state of Georgia watching? Because you're supposed to report sales tax, but I don't think I've sold to more than 5 people in Georgia. I think that's the one thing that I really need to. If I'm going to be doing this regularly, I need to make sure that with the sales tax for Georgia, that I report that. And I've thought about it because I see people that they'll have where that's automatically included in the invoice, the sales tax. So I think I need to get that. Even if it's only going to be like if I'm reporting $12 or $5, whatever it is, to the state of Georgia for the year, I want to make sure that I'm doing that. I don't want to get anything that's a red flag. But you're supposed to show sales tax, and if I'm going to continue to do this regularly, I need to do that.
okay, so now that we've discussed a lot about how you started with Lego and the birth of your Bricklink store, and we've actually managed to zoom through daily logistics. We have 2 more sections to go, but unfortunately, we've been online for quite some time, and I want to save these 2 remaining sections for another session whenever we can agree on our next available time. First of all, I want to say thank you, BrickTsar, for your time and sharing your experience with your running of the Bricklink store. And let's see. Yeah, sorry. So I invite everyone to visit our next stream. I believe TMX will be online next, and whenever we can agree to that schedule. But for now, it's tentatively set to next week. Once again, I want to encourage everyone to take a look at BrickTsar's online store. You can find it from BrickTsar.com. And again, I say thank you, BrickTsar.
You're welcome, and thanks for having me on.
So until next time, I'll see you in the next stream.
Thanks. I dropped my papers.